and also to leading to micro-credentials.
In order to face this task, I have to move from a definition, as always is useful to do. And as already explained by Carlos, we do not have an official definition generally accepted by all the countries. A lot of countries do not have a definition of micro-credentials. We have also seen that UNESCO made an attempt that is quite confusing. So we prefer to move from our European approach and in concrete looking at the definition proposed by European Commission through a public consultation followed by a proposal for European Council recommendation officially approved in June 2022. Next.
Okay.
This European approach to micro-credential for lifelong learning and employability bring us to the definition that we can read together. A micro-credential is a proof of the learning outcomes that a learner has acquired following a short learning experience. These learning outcomes have been assessed against transparent standards. So I want to focus my attention on 4 elements of this definition: proof, learning outcomes, learning experience. I choose this definition in the area that we can use because it focuses really clear the attention on the purpose that the learners has in choosing and choosing to be enrolled in a course that leads to a micro-credential. Why these 4 aspects I want to highlight? The first of all is proof. Proof means, or is strictly linked to other 2 concepts: certification and assessment. The definition has that we need to demonstrate the outcomes acquired through the micro-credential. And a certification of this micro-credential could be a really hot topic also in the future, because we know that at the moment we do not have a system that allows us to recognize in a widely and widespread way the certification that we receive as micro-credential. We also know that in several states we have different ways to define this concept. We can talk about badge, we can talk about micro-credential, we can also talk about post-module certificate or additional qualification. But at the end, the crucial aspect in the future will be create a system that allows all the institutions that decided to offer micro-credential to certify the competencies acquired. At the same time, to reach this goal, we need to work on the assessment. Micro-credential success depends on its capacity to be recognized and so to generate trust by many operators as possible, intended countries, companies, and training subjects. The other element that we have to consider is the learning outcomes. The learning outcomes, we need to define what are the outcomes in terms of knowledge and competencies that participants in a short learning experience can expect. In some ways, we can say that learning outcomes are what the micro-credential inherent has to offer. If the proof is something that shows externally that we acquired some competences, some skills, the learning outcomes look at what we looking for when we decided to start this type of program, this type of course. And we need to set, also in this case, the elements that allow us to properly define learning outcomes. Is another crucial aspect. In the European experience, we work in particular with the Dublin descriptors, a concept that I explain in detail later. But we need to clearly define which are the elements that allow people to choose a course and acquire a certain knowledge or skill. So through the learning outcomes, we can clearly define this choice, and at the same time, we can only define the elements that complete the learning experience. Short learning experience look in concrete at the teaching and technique and methods to acquire such competencies. We can assume that won't be traditional, that we do things in a different way. We need to create new model of teaching, but at the same time, we need to follow way of teaching that are already experimented by pedagogy, avoiding to offer to the learners something that have a potential appealing methods, but without or with a very little educational value. And the last element is learner. An important part of training activity is the relationship between learner and teacher, and we'll use to understand this relationship as something that is developed in a room. In micro-credential, we cannot assume that this relationship will be developed in the same way, and hopefully will be something different of what we have in schools and universities. So we need to consider this training experience, although they potentially involve learners of all ages, jobs and interests, and hopefully they are concretely oriented to updating competence in order to allow these people to remain or re-enter in the labor market. This is a very crucial aspect because moving for these four elements I'll try to discuss with you some practical experience that I have during the last years in creating and offering micro-credential. But I want to highlight from the beginning the importance of a learner, because I think that when we create a new micro-credential, the first question is, who is the learner? What is socio-economic backgrounds of the learning? What are the objectives that motivate the learning to acquire a micro-credential? Before to go in depth about this, I also want to spend some words replicating something that Armin and Carlos already said, but that I think is really important in order to explain the link that exists between the economy, rights, and individual when we talk about micro-credential. It is important because we need to fix some point in the framework in which the pedagogical and didactic question are placed. As already mentioned, we can go further.
Okay. Oh, okay. Is it? I skip?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
This one.
Okay.
We have already said that the increase of interest in micro-credential is the result of the fourth industrial revolution and the development of technologies that characterize this revolution and their application within the labor market make knowledge increasingly specialized. The broad knowledge that we used to acquire through university or high-level technical education is no longer sufficient, and at the same time is no longer enough to possess a certain professional qualification. So all the people start to look at the very and increasing sector-specific knowledge. However, it is also known that more specific is the knowledge, greater is the risk that it will be replaced and outdated by subsequent progress. For this reason, to avoid the obsolescence knowledge linked to technological progress and hyper-specialization, it becomes essentially to every category of workers continuously updating and upgrading their skills, or retraining themselves when the specific work has been partially or totally substituted by the use of a machine. On the other sides of the same coin, we can also see that technological progress create new jobs and bring the challenge to train new skills even previously unknown. The acquisition of such new skills guaranteed through a widely recognized certification is the answer that the large majority of the company looking for, because they are looking for workers who can handle technological process and progress, and they cannot wait that the traditional education cycles come to end. So it must be emphasized that micro-credentials that can very concretely answer to both the question that arise from the two sides of the coin. With respect of the lack of new skills, micro-credential can offer an informal qualification while we waiting to the choice of the decision maker. For instance, we can think about the new skills that the transition to the green economy that move in this moment a lot of investment and for sure required a lot of training activities in new skills that we need to perform. At the same time, with respect to lifelong learning, the idea that the learning cannot be confined to school university, as Carlos says, from the 18 to 25 years old, is acquired at European level from a long time. We know that we need to form ourselves at least for the entire work life and even later. So micro-credential appear also an ideal answer to prevent that certain people, and usually the weakest from a social or economic point of view, and at least culturally equipped, remain on the margin of the society and the labor market. So it's very important to notice that in 2020, the European Commission has included the micro-credential in the list of action to support lifelong learning. And these aspects need to be underlined since it showed how micro-credential that come out from the needs of the labor market as an answer to the continuous changing and progression of technologies in labor market is now feel as a tool also for help people in their social, human and cultural growth. This means, in other words, that micro-credential can serve to struggle not only the professional obsolescence, but also cultural obsolescence. And also, university, as we know, in the last decades, start to understand how they can significantly benefit from offering micro-credential in order to approach more rapidly the training demands from the labor market and at the same time to innovate teaching with a different approach. To complete this framework, evidently a liquid framework, to paraphrase a well-known sociologist, we can also consider that the attention to micro-credential and has been really a force, and in general all the training sector has been forced to accelerate some change through the pandemic. So in the last 3 years, we have seen that workers, students, and training providers have been experiment with the use of the information technology, and today we have a very large base of people that acquire an adequate knowledge of information technology, or at least do not reject them out of hand. This moved the attention to distance and blended learning that has a very strong impact in micro-credential, but we need to consider these tools also moving by the fact that thanks to this experience, we know that for educational institution, we can touch with hands the experience and so the opportunities and the limits that distant learning tools offers. As a teacher, we have to rewrite one of the fundamental characteristics of learning that was rooted for centuries on human relationship between subjects sharing the same room. And so we ask ourselves if we acquire something of what we need to do in order to maintain the same quality of performance for ourselves and for the students. And for what concerns the student lives, the first scientific studies demonstrate that they have faced a lot of social, psychological, anthropological difficulties. So all these fascinating topics are clearly out of scope of my report, but however, they allow me to highlight that micro-credential can surely benefit from information technology tools more significantly than ordinary education cycle, because there is a strong connection between the idea of offering a small skills, a certification of a small skills, what today we used to call micro-credential, but this phenomenon in concrete arise in the past, as already very well explained by Professor Delgado, with the spread of the personal computer first and internet in a later moment. So we go back to the four aspects that I mentioned, and I want to start from the learner, as I mentioned, because the most important aspect that we need to face and handle when we decided to propose an micro-credential is to focus our attention on the learners. We can move on. Two slides, I think.
Okay.
Just to... Oh, this one. This
Okay.
one's correct. So, I try to make a distinction between unconventional and conventional students. For unconventional students, I want to refer to workers, and for conventional students, I look for students that already are enrolled in a high school or a university. I made experience of two programs of micro-credential devoted to the difference group, and I want to share with you the differences. Of course, we already highlight that micro-credential born looking at the workers, so at the needs of the people that already are involved in the labor market. When we decided to start with the micro-credential, we need to address, first of all, who covered the cost. In particular, if the participant in the micro-credential can participate in the program thanks to an agreement with the company or employee that quite often could be part of the employee's training obligation, because this means that the workers can receive, and so the university or the providers can offer the content, deliver the content during working hours, and at the same time deliver face-to-face learning activities also for networking purpose, remain a very concrete opportunity. On the other hand, if the participants in the micro-credential is undertaken independently, it's clear that the worker will not be able to take advantage of working hours, develop face-to-face learning activities with a fixed timetable, may contest with work or personal family activities, and the use of e-learning through lessons that the learner can listen at any time became a necessary key to grant to the students flexibility. The first experience that we get in offering micro-credential was developed with CIMEA in Italy, and in particular with CIMEA in Italy, and in concrete we decided to move from the learners, as already mentioned. So we understand during the COVID that in Italy there is a concrete exigence from the university, because we are facing an new request from international students to come to Italy for studying. And this request became more concrete also thanks to the COVID, because in Italy we have a very wide health system that offers for free health protection also for international students and all the people that are in the country. So with CIMEA we start to work on this project, looking to at specific learners, the people that works in international relation office in the university in Italy, because they needed to face a specific problem, how to handle the recognition of the title that the students present when they want to came and study in Italy. So we focus the topic on the credential evaluation, how to evaluate the credential that the student present, and we build something very concrete, very specific. We are focused our attention to 73 institutions, public and private. In any institution work 2 or 10 people. So we have a base clearly defined. We can focus the topic, since CIMEA have a very strong and largely recognized competence in this area, and we start with the class. And of course, during the COVID, we need to perform entirely online. So the entire course was offering with lesson that will be recorded, and then the students can participate in synchronic way or take the recorded lesson in another moment. We can highlight that the 95% of the students during the COVID prefer to be involved in the lecture in the same moment in which we offer the content. And at the same time, we have seen how they was really happy to be involved in a different way of offer context. For instance, we preview that any learners needs to develop a specific essay, focusing his attention on a country, one of the European area, one of the international area. So we apply in concrete all the didactical and pedagogical indication that we used to consider when we think about credential evaluation. Then when in 2022 we decided to represent this content, because we understand that the demand is increasing and a lot of people in the university, especially in the International Admission Office and not only in the International Relations Office, have the exigence to perform, we start a new experience and we offer a blended program. So we offer the opportunity to the learners to come in person at university to the beginning of the class, and also have 2 days of lectures in presence when the course ended. I see lectures, but also in this case we try to offer content in a very different way. We invited speakers from the US, we invite all the learners to carry practical activities, oh thank you very much, during the lectures. So this experience demonstrate that the success of the micro-credential require that the program will be tailored to the specific needs of the students, especially if they are workers. We have seen that the numbers of the students involved in this micro-credential increased from the first edition, 21, to the second edition, 55 students. And at the same time, we add weight and change the way to propose our contents. So we fix an appropriate strategy to talking with the base of our students. This means that a university can also decide to talk to companies or other institutional entities or bodies in order to offer courses close to their need. We can see at least three advantages. The company, on one side, are often interested that workers develop specific skills. Work with the company can help to define clear learning outcomes and also create a concrete expectation that project the learning outcomes correspond exactly to those actually achieved to the students. And however, the micro-credential provider, so in our case the university, must preserve its training independence as proof of the quality of training, because it is provider responsibility and not of the company guarantee such quality, also because it's the university, the provider, that has the expertise of teaching methods. From a didactic point of view, as already mentioned, micro-credential students that arrive from the world of work will tend to be more interested in cultivating practical, applicative side of knowledge. For instance, instead of explaining why, from a legal point of view, a document can be considered false and so can be valorized, it's better to show in a practical activity to the students which elements help us to understand when a document can be considered as false or fraud. At the same time, workers prefer a problematic approach rather than theoretical one. So we need to reasoning with them and find a way to offer a solution. And another very important aspect is that the workers want to share their wealth of experience. They gain experience over years of work, and this aspect needs to be valorized in the context of training. At the same time, another aspect that from a didactic point of view we need to consider is that the adult worker has different learning times and methods in comparison from those of the school-age learner. And so they cannot adhere usually to a long-term training course. They prefer short, as already mentioned also by Carlos and Armin, highly specialized experience, and in particular, they seek pathways that offer a final certification recognized in some ways in the labor market. On the other hand, when we look at the students, micro-credential can be, of course, also of interest to conventional students from my school or university. But in this case, micro-credential are considered as completion of the training received within the traditional education and training system. So, completions of the skill that I acquired through my degrees. On this particular area, I can offer another example that I developed in my university. We create several micro-credential, 10 at the moment, micro-credential that the student can acquire during their pathway. My favorite is the one that I create, of course. There is certificate of international competence. It's interesting that in concrete, we do not offer an entire pathway to the students, but we valorize experience that the students already received during the years of the degree, but adding also a very specific experience. To receive an international a certificate of international competence, our students need to be involved, first of all, in a mobility experience. Mobility for study, mobility for traineeship. Then they need to obtain a language certification of at least B2 level. This part is the easiest because our program that already exists, they can grab by themselves. At the same time, we need to focus the attention to the students on two other aspects. Intercultural activities and commitments, and work on their skill in order to better perform when they leave the international experience, the mobility experience. So we create a program, one then oblige or simply ask the students to devote time in several activities to the international students, but at the same time we require the students to follow seminars in order to learn how to sustain an interview in English, how to perform a presentation in English, how to complete a curriculum in English. But the most interesting part is that we create, and here comes the academic content, a test in order to evaluate the cultural intelligence of the students. This test is an international recognized test, so we invited all the students that needs to be involved in a mobility to take part of the test, and then once that they receive the results, they have some coach activity with a trainer in order to understand how to work on this aspect and how to better perform. In this way, we can make a comparison with the skills that they have before to leave for a mobility and the skills that they acquire when they return. And if they are capable to work on the skills and which type of the result they receive. When the students complete all the pathways, so we're involved in all these aspects, at the end he received a badge, a micro-credential that was included officially in his curriculum, and at the same time is officially valorized by the university, because all the students that acquire the certification and can complete the pathway receive 1 point as at the end of the final evaluation of the degree. So when they discuss their thesis, 1 point is added if they have the certificate. And this aspect is truly interesting because in this way we can motivate a lot of students to be involved in this micro-credential that we offer for free, for instance. And also, and actually we have decided to create a closed number. So every semester we can accept only 30 students to the certificate, to obtain the certificate, in particular to the cultural intelligence activity, because in this way we can attract the attention of the students and their commitment in order to obtain the certification. Another aspect that I want to highlight when we talk about ordinary students or conventional students is the differences, and at the same time clarify the relationship between micro-credential and professional qualification. we are talking about different things. Qualification represents usually a license with public regulation requires to allow practicing a certain profession. So the main characteristic of a professional qualification is that they are compulsory. To have access to a certain labor market, the students must have the proper qualification. On the other hand, micro-credentials are by definition on demand. They are never necessary for the exercise of profession. They are always optional, always voluntary. However, especially with respect of new jobs that come out from technological progress, micro-credential can temporarily replace qualification. As long as there is no official and public regulation and we have to wait the decision of the public making decision, we can use micro-credential in order to obtain a sort of informal qualification that allow us to perform professional activity. As I mentioned to you, I have a very similar experience when I start to work as a teacher. My area of specialization is civil procedural law and ADR, so alternative disputes resolution. And one of the main tools that we have in this area is mediation. Mediation is a contractual tool in order to solve disputes between private with the help of mediator without go in front of judge or an arbitrators. When I start to act as a teacher, we start to offer this type of content with programs that in concrete were micro-credential. 40 hours of practical activities, lectures, evaluation of the psychological and pedagogical aspects of the relationship and compensation of the interest between parties. And we going on to offer this type of content for years. Meanwhile, in 2008, the European Commission delivered a directive that regulated the mediation, and then the Italian legislator with the law in 2010 do the same. So from that moment, we substitute our informal micro-credential that allow to professional to offer a specific activity to a qualification, because in concrete, the public decision maker decided that to act as a mediator, we need a formal requirement, we need a qualification. If I make a comparison between the program that we spontaneously offer and the ones regulated by the legislator, they are practically the same. 15 hours that you need to receive with practical and theoretical activities and also evaluating the psychological aspect. But nowadays, is another consequence, it makes no sense to offer a micro-credential in this specific area, because all the people want the qualification. All the people want something that allows them to concretely offer the professional activity. The integration between qualification and micro-credential is also helped by the fact that all this qualification, also in the approach of the legislator, start to be very modular. So if we start to reduce to a smaller learning units the learning outcomes that we acquire also in a recognized and official pathway that lead us to a qualification, micro-credential could always works as a tools, but at the same time, the micro-credential needs to be in some ways officially recognized by the legislator, not to be part of this pathway. Because otherwise, the learners receive something that cannot properly be used in order to be present in the labor markets. Another important aspect that we need to consider when we look at the providers is the difference that nowadays we have in the providers present on the markets. We have to distinguish public institution, private institutions subject to public regulation, and private institution. It is an important aspect because in order to build and create faith on a micro-credential and on the program that we want to offer to learners, it's really important that we create a benchmark, we create standard that all the providers need to follow. And in this specific area, a previous quality assessment on contents delivery in a micro-credential program that really is not compulsory at the moment is something that we need to reach in order to evaluate the necessary competence and deep knowledge of the contents taught, an adequate quality assessment system, a relevant experience in pedagogy and didactics by the providers. Also in this specific aspect, sometimes, also in this, I like to walk when I talk. Also in this specific aspect, the European legislator offers some example to a good connection between public entities like universities and private entities. Because sometimes the legislator establish that specific contents of micro-credential can be offered by private institution only in consortium with university. Because the legislator considered that university have an objective experience with quality assessment system and hold a relevant experience in pedagogy and didactics. And this happen quite often when we look to contents that sooner or later were modified in qualification that allow professionals to perform specific contents. On the other hand, guarantee this quality assessment is also a primary interest of learner, because an institution that offers a new micro-credential can, through a quality assessment process, guarantee clarity in definition of the expected learning objectives, transparency in assessment methods, correspondence to assessment and the learning levels defined by the national school system. I go in deeper on this in a while. And at the end, certification of the competence that we receive once that the program has been performed.
Okay.
My slides are really poor, I know, so it's not helping.
Okay.
So moving to other aspect, we talk about learners, we move from learners. The other aspect that I want to analyze in deeper is the learning experience, short learning experience that focus, we said, on contents that is offered by the training provider and teaching methods. In Europe, there are already some research groups that are actively working on micro-credential, and among them deserve attention microball. Microball means micro-credential linked to the Bologna K commitments. In Europe, we have the Bologna process that you already know, and And so this project aims to apply Bologna tools also to micro-credential. The interesting aspect is that Microbot propose a definition of micro-credential according to which they must have final results that is associated with qualification framework at European and national level. I need to spend some words about this topic of national qualification framework that I think that we already know, but in Bologna process we have created a very wide area in which we are capable to describe the qualification in terms of workload preview for the students, level of education, learning outcomes in terms of competence, skills, and training profile. As mentioned by Professor Carlos, in university usually we have 3 levels, a bachelor degree, master degree, and PhD. And another important aspect is the use of ECTS, European Credit Transfer System. So we can compare the effort of the students, and we used to consider that a bachelor degree normally corresponds to 180 ECTS in 3 years. Spain is an exception, 4 years, 240. The second cycle normally requires 120 credits and also 2 years of time, but also in this case we have an exception that looks for only 1 year. The third cycle, the PhD, usually lasts 3 years, usually, but is not measured in credits. This is important because also for micro-credential, the ACTS acts as central rule, because this specific instrument for measuring value in university courses help to assume that a micro-credential content measured in ACTS are set on the same academic level of the degree in which is inserted. For instance, we used to plan always 8, 9 ACTS credit for the micro-credential that we develop and offer, and this helped the students to understand the type of effort required, but also the level that, in my case, is always linked with a master degree in law. I already mentioned that the short learning experience, the learning experience, is linked to the teaching methods. But teaching methods move the attention to the learning outcomes and the specific skills to be acquired. In concrete, it makes no sense to define teaching methods without defining learning outcomes. And also in this case, looking at the European experience, we have a Trinity College Dublin that has developed a set of descriptors that we used to call the Dublin descriptors, largely used to define learning outcomes and built on the following elements: the knowledge of and understanding, how to apply knowledge and understanding, ability to draw conclusion and making judgments, communication skills, and learning skills. Such descriptors do not represent a minimum requirement which the learner must achieve, but aim to identify the nature of the qualification. And their use is also facilitated by the fact that they are not related to a specific academic or professional field, so can be used transversally. And this tools really facilitate the understanding and at the same time the comparability of the title, overcoming the limits imposed by differences between the various national statistical systems.
Where is it?
We can move to
Where
the
is
other
it?
slides
Okay.
in this case.
Okay. Okay. Where? Okay. Hello.
Microball project consider the use of doubling descriptors that I showed in the previous slide necessary for the offer of micro-credential, since they can enable potential learners to perceive more clearly the objectives of a specific micro-credential, favor the comparison on an objective basis of that micro-credential offer with the other products present on the market, and ensure the recognition of the learning experience in a broader space. It's also interesting. It's not a problem. I talk all the time with that slide, so for you it's the same. Ones that I have, but it's definitely the same. I want to highlight, before going back to the descriptors, that some scholars also highlight that micro-credential in some ways fall within the concept of student-centeredness, introduced once again by the Bologna process, which means the involvement of the students, of the learner, in the decision that determine the consistencies of his or her educational pathway. And this approach seems to be really current to micro-credential, where the learning experience must be adapted to the needs of the participants and allow for a certain personalization of learning. So, the teaching methods. If we look at the doubling descriptors, the teaching methods must be chosen on the basis of the learned outcomes to be achieved. The first column identifies clearly the learning outcomes of a micro-credential program.
Stop sharing.
Set
Stop sharing.
of the scripture, this set of scripture is really useful, and if we look, for instance, at the knowledge acquisition and retention, there is a typical outcomes that we can grab through the lectures, so the teaching strategy that you can use for handle and acquire knowledge acquisition and retention could be lectures. If we look at the scripture, we can easily understand that on the one hand, the same learning outcomes can be obtained using different teaching methods. For instance, we can use group work, self and peer assessment, peer teaching, self-direct learning, independent research. And at the same time, the same teaching methods, even lecture, can be used for various types of outcomes. So we can not only acquire knowledge and retention with lecture, but we can use lecture also to analyze classification, structural understanding, or even to evaluating, evidencing and defending judgment of analysis. So this concretely means that thanks to the scheme, we can clearly define the strict relation between the outcomes that we want to acquire and the teaching methods. At the same time, we need to consider that the potential obsolescence of the skill acquired by the learner, including the ones acquired through a micro-credential, makes, as a general approach, not sufficient to simply up-to-date the student's knowledge, but we need to offer something more. Once again, Carlos mentioned that we need to offer to the learners, and in particular to the workers, the ability to learn how to learn. And this exigence will lead us to find different type of teaching methodology. The traditional lecture in the majority of the case, will be abandoned, since we need to offer something different and something more to the learners. In particular, we need to offer them the capacity of problem posing and problem solving tools in order to seek solution through collaboration with other people who have different skills and experience. At the same time, another very important aspect that we need to consider when we talk about to be sufficient in order to offer them a real formation. But at the same time, when we talk about micro-credential, use this type of tools became quite a necessity. So we need to find a balance, and I believe, between the concrete risk that the advantage of distance learning can reduce the capacity of the students to acquire content. I posed the topic in this way because I was mentioned that, in particular in the Italian experience, I don't know if also in other European countries, but we start to face the fact that exists some universities that works only online, only in telematic way, and this not only in offer content, but also in making assessment. And this shows a real great problem in evaluating the students, and also in concrete evaluate what they want to obtain. It's a very, maybe more specific aspect that involves Italy, but sometimes I have the sensation, I want to share this type of experience with you, that if we work on the online didactics, so we offer the contents online, and then we make also the assessment online without using a critical approach to a written proof. I heard mentioning the multiple choice written test this morning. I think that this type of test cannot be used as a way of assessment in micro-credential, especially if we offer a large part of the content online, because in this way we risk, in a very concrete way, to lose our goal, that is to offer specific skills to the students. And the last thing is the evaluation and the assessment of learning. At the moment, we do not have a widely spread out methods of assessing and measuring skills, but once again, I think that we need to move a concrete step to an evaluation that is widely recognized through certification. And once again, we need to move to the identification of learning outcomes, but and we need to use all the tools that I already mentioned. But secondly, we need to establish transparent standards. Transparent standards are the criteria and the benchmark that we want to use to assess the students, that students need to know from the beginning of the course. So I think that creates a certification that is largely recognized is the further step that micro-credential needs to face as didactic methods in order to enrich the experience of the students and offering something that they can really use in the largest way in the world of work. So I finish my report, and if there are some questions, I'm open to receive them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof. Aniello. So we open the floor for questions. Any online questions?
Questions now. Okay. I have okay, Aniello, I have a question with regard to this Dublin descriptor.
Yeah.
Does it align to the Bloom taxonomy? So it's just I mean.
No, it's different colors in order to better read the
All
documents.
right. So if we because most of the public use this, USM in particular, we are using the Bloom taxonomy for our learning outcome. If we're talking about academic courses, level 100, should be.
Yeah. We all use these Dublin descriptors also for the
Uh-huh.
other academic contents that we offer. But MicroCASA specifically invite all the institutions, the providers to use the Dublin descriptors also to construct the learning outcomes of a micro-credential.
So basically, we are still using the Bloom's taxonomy, but when it comes to each descriptors, we follow. You are suggesting we follow these Dublin descriptors.
Exactly.
Alright. Okay. Maybe next question.
Prof, can you give example how we can use role-play strategy in our micro-credential and observe how students use this method?
Always we can move from the learning outcome. So it depends of the learning outcome that we want to obtain. In my personal experience, I never use this particular tools because in the area of law could be more difficult. But for instance, we combine several tools in order to create micro-credential. And an experience that I didn't mention, a micro-credential that I offer last year to my students, combine online lectures, seminars, and also work on paper studying a specific case, and also a mock trial, or in the same micro-credential. So the students need to follow some lectures and some seminar on international disputes. They need to prepare some workshop creating a paper about a concrete case. Then we move to a specific university, because we involve in this project students from 5 different universities. They came from all over the Europe, and another important aspect is that the students needs to be followed as a coach in preparing the paper from a coach that came from another country. And then at the end we go to a specific university in order to have a moot competition. So invite the students to discuss their own paper on the specific case in order to elect who express from a juridical point of view better the topics, and at the same time who also explain the arguments with a more convincing oral capacity. So I honestly cannot capable to pick any one of these and say how to use it, because I move my personal experience, but I can testify that micro-credential concretely invite you, once that you fix the learning outcomes, to combine different tools, and so to be creative and enrich the experience of the students. You're welcome.
Any more question? No, not so far. Okay. The
Any more
collab name,
questions?
collab names, apa, .id. Oh, okay.
Well,
Okay, there is a question here.
Okay, from Associate Professor Dr. Kati from IUKL, it's a private institution.
yeah.
Okay, Prof, is there any guide
On the duration of micro-credential, is there any
Is there any?
guide?
guide on the duration of micro-credential?
Oh, this is an eternal question.
Okay.
Honestly, no. There are people that believe that a micro-credential can cover 24 or at least 40 credits, so we are talking about something that will be developed for 1,000 hours of effort of the students if we look at the European credit transfer system. In my experience, I always said something around 8, 10, maximum 14 credits, because honestly, I always try to adapt something that's already existing on the regulation of the university, and in order to move to a micro-credential. So I like to work with specialization courses, we used to call it before, and now we change in micro-credential, because do not exist a guide that fix the duration of a micro-credential, but in general do not exist a guide or a regulation inside the European Commission and inside any single university that regulate how to perform a micro-credential. We create this moving from something that already exists and deciding to use the same process in order to arrive to a different, a more efficient, and more enriching results. So I cannot give a specific answer because for sure it doesn't exist. There are also universities that offer micro-credential of 1 credit, 2 credits, really, really short. It depends also by the scientific area, I believe. Please,
So-
Carlos.
Sorry, I just read up to that question. So 1 credit is equal to how many hours?
In
Maybe
Europe, 1 credit is 25 hours of student efforts.
student efforts.
And within these 25 hours, we include personal study and all the other activities, seminars, lectures, paperwork.
Another question to add to that. So is all the micro-credential courses in the Europe are chargeable? Meaning to say students have to pay for it?
No, I mentioned my experience, and I develop micro-credential chargeable for the workers, so from people that comes from outside university, but at the same time, all the micro-credential that I develop for my students or the faculty of law will be offered for free. Sometimes the students need to cover some expenses because we decided to travel or to adding experience that needs to cover some costs, but they do not pay for receiving the academic content.
Oh, okay, thanks. Any other question? Yeah, Prof.
Not a question, but clarification on this duration
Oh, okay.
of the micro-credential, which in Europe is very fragmented. So there's national legislation different in different countries. For instance, in Spain, we have law 822 of 2021, that defines a micro-credential maximum 15 ECTS.
15,
15 in Spain.
apparently.
In the Netherlands is 30. In Belgium is 20. In some countries, they don't have a regulation. In some have recommendations. In Germany, I think recommendation of 9, but it's not fixed from 3 to 9. No,
Malaysia,
ECTS, but it's a recommendation.
Malaysia?
Malaysia 40.
14.
14.
14.
40.
14. I remember
Yeah.
14.
Including student in Malaysia, is for like for the physical classes, we say conventional classes, we calculate as 40 hours, including
Hours.
yeah,
Not easy.
one unit, one credit equal to 40 hours, including student own learning
So
time.
how many
40
credits? How many
hours.
What credit equal to 40 hours?
One credit is 40 hours.
40.
How many credits a micro-credential?
One
No.
micro credential is one credit.
One credit.
Yes.
One credit, micro-credential, one
Yes.
Short and sharp.
credit.
Basically, the practice in public universities in Malaysia, if it's a 4-unit or 3-unit course or even 2-unit course, we can split this course into like 4 credits, 3 credits, 2 credits, depends. But we limit for each micro-credential for 1 credit with only one learning outcomes, and it amounts to 40 student learning time, which covers the videos. Okay, well, when we talk about videos, the guideline for USM, 10 minutes is equivalent of 1 hour of student learning time. Okay, and then all the quizzes and other activities.
There was
Hello, I'm Anita from University Kebangsaan Malaysia. Okay, I would like to ask your maybe opinion from all of us here. Okay, most of the public and private university in Malaysia now are in the planning of micro-credentialing our program, our academic program. For example, we have
academic
the
program.
entire academic program.
Creating units.
Because we want to support the lifelong learning and enable those who are unfortunate cannot come to the university so that they can take it in terms of micro-credential. The question is, if we allow that, how long? For example, they're taking it micro. Okay, for example, how long should we give to these students to complete? For example, if bachelor degree in Malaysia is about 120 credits.
Okay.
Okay, the question is how long can we allow them to accumulate the micro-credentials before they go and redeem their bachelor degree, for example?
This is a political choice, I think, of the university or the legislator, but I assume that the students that hoped for a micro-credential, especially if the number of credits is 1, honestly have no interest in redeem it after a long time, because I don't know if he has interest to spend 2-3 years collecting 20 credits and then starts a pathway of the degree that you need to perform quite entirely, So it's a political choice, but I think that we can imagine something in the interest of the students, not so large, because otherwise it takes a lot of time, and we also have, I always thinking about my area, but I think that in a lot of areas, not only law, we have a theme of obsolescence of knowledge. So receiving a degree 10 years later that you made our 2 feet, you are smiling and I understand, but you don't know how it's common in Italy is receiving a degree of law 7 or 8 years later that you start the university. Is something that doesn't make sense, because maybe when you study private or commercial law at the beginning and you finish your degree, the major part of the law are changed. So.
My name is Emma. I would like to share our experience, not our experience, our framework. We in School of Management have micro-credential course, but we collaborate with industry. The industry that we are collaborating with is industry company, it's QSR, the Pizza Hut things. We do not cannot do 100% micro-credential because of this issue, because we are afraid that it's going to be prolonged. Right. So what we do is micro-credential is in terms of delivery and assessment and everything. However, in terms of final exam, we still ask them to come to the university. So, because our final exam will be parallel with the conventional, right? So in that case,
So the learning activity is entirely online, but the assessment is presential.
the final exam only.
Yeah, the final exam, the evaluation, sorry.
Yes, the evaluation. However, the quizzes and everything, the format is so. We have a trouble that we cannot do one program because MPA, because of the MQA and the POPA, did not have the structure framework. So we are the first to introduce this kind of framework. So yes, so we hope that by putting the final exam parallel time with the conventional, we can minimize the problem of prolonging forever and ever and ever. So that is how we do it. So if you want to talk more about that, contact us. We can discuss on that. And the first batch will start on October. It is a degree program, Bachelor of Management with minors in that. Because we get the QSR, the KFC Pizza Hut. Workers.
I have a question, if I may. Are you satisfied with the length of a micro-credential? The idea that you can offer only 1 credit and 40 hours of lectures?
No, not 40 hours. Student.
It's the learning time.
Yes.
So, even more. Yeah. Because from my point of view, it could be really difficult to an agent to offer some contents with an effort of the students so limited. So just to understand why the length is so strict. 40 hours of
Because for micro-credential, we still do not have a very strong framework. There is no strict outline on framework on micro-credential. We base more on conventional. Try to develop
because I'm thinking that in order to develop the micro-credential as a tools, the length of the content that you can offer is a topic, because if you can go in deeper, maybe you can also offer to the students something that is more articulated or more complex. Otherwise, you can face problems.
Maybe that I can add to that. Actually, our Malaysian institutions are bounded to the higher authority where we call as Malaysian Quality Assurance that monitors our programs. But for micro-credential, we don't have a solid framework established. So that's lead to every university or institution coming up with a leveraged framework, assuming, okay, 1 credit is equivalent to 40 student learning time, which we adapt from the conventional practice. Yet, there are micro-credentials being developed which just cater to focus on a particular topic, for example. Let's say I want to learn about video content creation, which is only tailored for 2 to 4 hours of learning time. So there are micro-credentials being developed. But that is just as a competency-based micro-credential, not unit transferable kind of micro-credentials.
Because our qualification agency, Malaysian Qualification Agency, MQA, are heading towards APEL N. APEL is the credit transfer.
Okay.
Okay, so means that Apple, they are going to give a transfer for those who are taking it in micro-credentials to be to be awarded a degree or master program. So that is our guideline now. But Apple app is not yet confirmed by the MQA lah. So that's why we are still hanging and thinking of, but we know that we are heading towards that.
They want to use micro-credential as a tools in order to increase the number of the students that have a degree.
Yeah.
If I understand correctly.
Yeah, both degree and master program also. Yeah. So it means that we allow them to take it bite size before they being awarded that degree or master program. Thank you.
Hello, Prof. My name is Heidi. Can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear you.
My name is Heidi. So I don't know how to put my question because I want to ask opinion from you. Yeah. So I try to put it into hopefully, nice words. Okay. Because the topic today is about how to kind of convert teaching, professional teaching into micro-credential approach, right?
Yeah.
All right. So throughout your talk, I didn't see example of it. So my question is, do you have any examples how in your university, let's say if you have such courses have been converted or using the approach? For example, let's say you talk about course A. So how the course has been converted into this micro-credential approach. For example, let's say maybe I don't know what the system used in it. But let's say if there is a 3-unit course, but even for example, because even because we
Okay. Yeah, I make several. Honestly, we do not have at the moment the conversion of a degree in micro-credential. For instance, I do not think about the possibility to take the master degree in law, sharing in units, and offer any single topics as a micro-credential. For the moment, we didn't. But what we used to do at the moment is to take courses that for their original length cover a shorter number of credits, like the one that we use for specialization or higher formation of professional, and starting to converting in micro-credential, discussing with the learners the way to offer the content, how to perform the lectures activities, how to involve them with their capacity and experience in the offering contents. No? So, for instance, the ones that we organize with Chimea traditionally would be something different, but once we moved to a micro-credential, we decided to invite experts from abroad. We decided to have a specific activity in order to recognize false documentation using instruments. We decided to assign to every student a paperwork about 2 different countries and make the assessment and evaluation of this paperwork. All things that, if we think of the traditional lectures, are more difficult to do. But as we said, a different element that we can use in order to qualify an academic content as micro-credential. the ones that arise in a more evident way, in my opinion, is the possibility to work in a very specific way about the learning outcomes and the teaching methodology with the learners. So sharing the approach, looking at their concrete exigencies, and also trying to valorize the skills that they already have and the knowledge that they can bring into the lectures. No? Because if I have to talk with professionals that already made a specific work for years, have no sense that I start from the beginning and I offer also the traditional contents that I usually offer in any academic activity to a new students, because they want to go directly on something that they can learn and they can feel as an upgrade looking at their knowledge. So this is something that in micro-credential is easy to do, because you can use, as I explained, you start from the learners. So the first answer, the first question, sorry, is who are the learners, which is their background, what they want to perform through the micro-credential. And then you can start to construct all the program. And in this way, you involve them in this. If we talk about workers, for the students work in the same way, but at the end I use a micro-credential in order to force students to perform more. So to acquire other capacity, other skills to enrich their curricula. Sometimes the students are not so focused on this opportunity. They don't want to be involved too much. They don't want to make commitments. So micro-credential is a means. No, the fact that they receive a badge, the fact that they receive the fact that they receive something that fulfill their curricula, a certification is the word that I didn't find. The fact that they receive a certification motivate them, no? And so if we simply talk about credits, they are not so motivated. If we talk about micro-credential, something attract their attention.
Maybe the last question from this online. Okay, you can read
So
it out.
while we designing a micro-credential and found that the content is more than micro-credential suggested maximum hours of learning, then we just changed the micro-credential into a MOOC. Is that all right? Yeah, I imagine that you cannot lose the work done, so you can split the content in two micro-credential or offering a MOOC. We evaluated this also with the micro-credential that we developed with Cimea in the next edition to make an advanced program for the ones that already follow the previous edition, so they can move from a certain point, and the traditional program for all the others that never had the experience.
Okay.
The last question? Yeah, please. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But it's not only traditional teaching, you know, you need to connect more elements in order to have a micro-credential, but it's a starting point also considering this specific aspect.
Kita salah, especially in Malaysia. Microcredential
Mhm.
2 hours, 4 hours. Just a learning outcome yang kita nak achieve. Ada soalan?
Yeah, I understand the question, yes. Yeah. Yeah, the professor, I mean, yeah. Yeah. But it's not a fixed scheme. The added value of micro-credential is that you create something that is adaptable to the exigencies of the learners, and you can modify the contents time from time. So honestly, there is not an answer of how many hours you can convert, because if I think of the micro-credential that I develop, sometimes are 5, sometimes are 7, always moving from the learners. So always moves from the target of the people that I need to form. I said before that usually in Europe, in Italy, I develop a micro-credential that moves from 6 to 9 credits. In my personal experience, that means 150 to 125 hours. Yeah. Yeah, this is the reason why before I asked if you feel comfortable with 40. Because for me, 40 looks at very small time to manage. Short time.
Yes.
You're welcome.